And Adam, I'd like to start with you. Why theater? How did you choose theater? How did theater choose you?
I have a dumb story or just a story I've told forever. So in third grade, Joy and Karen McBride were twins and friends of mine, and they came and asked me to be in a play. They were going to do James and Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and they made me an Oompa Loompa. And I was very annoyed. So I went home. I started my own rival theater company, and I wrote James and the Giant Peach, and I made myself James.
No way.
Yeah. My cousin Les played the caterpillar. He had a boater and one of those striped bathing suits. And Carol, what was Carol's last name? She was a chubby little girl, so she played the ladybug and also the fat ant. And it was interesting. Someone had a shawl and she was the glowworm. It was really good for third grade. We had rival theater companies.
Wow. Do you remember the name of your theater company?
I don't, but I remember writing a spoof of Romeo and Juliet and trading it for their Christmas story that they had come up with. And then we did the plays. We did them in front of our class. And mine had a moment that had a pie in my face, which was the big moment. But we used shaving cream instead of whipped cream, and it got in my eyes, and it was a disaster. It was my first failure. But I did Harriet the Spy Outside. I did a lot. And I just, ever since I remember in 6th grade, we had an assignment to write something. So I wrote a play, Murder by Arsenic.
So you got into it as a playwright. So it wasn't for you. So you did make yourself James. You wrote yourself into the lead role there.
I always wrote.
Yeah, but writing was where you started with this.
Yeah, I always wrote. I liked acting. Acting was really fun, but I always, I don't know why I wrote or liked writing. I was always an artist as a kid, drawing, and I probably should have been an artist, but I ended up a playwright. No.
And that just followed you, and you just kept finding yourself doing that.
Yeah.
Grade school, high school.
In high school, I went to a very fancy prep school, and I asked to learn playwriting, and they found a teacher, Michelle Latier. I still remember her name, and she sat me down and made me listen to a play on a record. That was the first play sort of I'd seen on a record, and it was Marat Sade.
Oh my gosh.
That's how I got. So I was like, oh, that's what a play is, and then I did some play, and then I went to the O'Neill, and then I went to Brown, and then I went to New York, and then I stayed in Rhode Island, and then I ended up with you guys.
And then came back to New York.
Yeah.
Wow.
But I was always a playwright. I've always been a playwright. It's the only thing I never thought of doing anything else ever.
Wow.
And I don't know why. I don't know why I thought I had the ability. Or because I wrote terrible plays at first. I wrote a 200-page play about bag ladies to get into Brown, and it was terrible. It's terrible, but I guess it had ambition because it was long.
Yeah.
I don't know how. It was just what I was gonna do, and I just kept doing it. I went to the O'Neill, which was a theater school, and I went as a playwright, and was not encouraged there either. So it's like I don't know why I kept thinking that I could do it.
Mm-hmm.
And really, the first play I really knew how to write was Swimming in the Shallows.
Oh, no kidding.
That was like my 6th or 7th play.
And Adam's heard me tell this story before, and I don't know if I've shared it with you, Marianne, but I remember I got Swimming in the Shallows passed to me by Kent Nicholson, who now works at, is it Playwrights? No.
Not anymore, he just changed, but he was at Playwrights.
Yeah, Playwrights. And at the time, he was like the lit manager at the Magic, and the Magic had passed on it. And this is like 98, I guess, when I got this. And he had read this play there. They passed on it, and he forwarded it to me. He was looking for a directing gig. And I remember clearly where I was at my apartment on 36th Street in Oakland, and I was on page 18. And I remember I stopped reading it, and I leaned over. I was on my bed, And I leaned over the side of my bed, picked up my phone, and I called Kent Nicholson up. I said, I'm not going to read another page unless you can promise me that we have a shot at producing this play, because I don't want to fall in love with it any more than I already am. I don't want to love this play. And you're like, oh, man, I'm also shopping it at whatever, at the, Berkeley Rep or whoever, San Jose Stage or someplace else that and he says, no, I'm only talking about it with you. And so there was like, and I just like, oh my God, I can't believe this play. And yeah, and then Adam and I, Adam and I got together and had lunch and discovered how much we had in common in all kinds of ways. And just sort of like, fell in friendship with each other. And we ended up producing it. And it's funny, we ran it in the basement. We'd started off in the basement of a pizza parlor at Laval's. But this theater we produced it was the basement of what was Theater Rhino in the Mission. Mm-hmm. And it took off like a rocket, and became like this is the show you have to see. And it swept all of the awards that year. But I didn't even know what the Barry Critics Circle Awards were until that year. And they were like, we won everything,
It's so weird because we were against Metamorphosis, remember?
I know, we're against all these auditions. I felt kind of like, what? Like best cast, best new play, best ensemble, best blah, blah. And there, I often talk about that there was like before we did Swing in the Shallows and after, but before, SI, S and after SASIS, as far as like how folks in the theater community sort of engaged with who we were, like, oh, y'all are the folks that did that play. I mean, a dynamite cast for that show too,
I remember my favorite moment that I saw that one. There was a moment, Marianne, in the play where Barb's husband, Bob, comes out on stage and he has a sign, it just says Bob. And then he leaves. So they mention Bob, Bob comes out, he puts the sign up and then he leaves. And there were 3 drunk lesbians in the front row. And they thought it was so funny that Bob came and went. They started laughing really hard. And then the audience behind them started laughing at them laughing. And so they turned around and started laughing at the audience, and the audience laughed out loud more. And then he came out again. And it was just like, it was not.
Everybody exploded.
It was kind of what I hoped for.
I almost feel like we could do a whole conversation just on that show. Them pulling a pocket of sand out of his pocket and throwing it on the ground and like, beach, they're at the beach. He took some sand out of his pocket, we're at the beach.
The beach.
John Flanagan and Liam Vincent making out on stage. People were like, what?
I know.
Anyway.
So good. Oh, and there's
the reading was great too that you did earlier. Last year, I guess. You did it last year?
What was that?
The reading?
Oh yeah, we did a reading of it. Like a private reading of it. And everybody's like, when are you going to do that play again?
Yeah, when are you going to do that play again?
Listen, we're talking about it. I'm like, I read it again. I teach at a family camp, and I took scenes of it to do with my family. It's like you go, and so we all take classes. People can learn how to play violin, or you can make sculptures out of rocks. And I teach a beginning acting class, and I did scenes from Swimming in the Shallows with all these parents, and we were like, this whole group said, we've got to do the whole play next year. You got to bring a script, and this is not going to be part of the class. We're going to have our own separate private class because it won't be open to anybody. We're going to cast it before we get to camp, and we're going to do our own production, like on a deck in the Redwoods.
Why don't you invite me?
Maybe I will. Maybe I will. But I do want to do another full production because it's such a beautiful play. It's such it's like Midsummer Night's Dream. Like you almost can't fuck it up, Anyway.
I've seen it so many different ways, so many different times. I remember seeing it. I went to Utah and they did it.
Wow.
And they kind of overdetermined. There's a shark in it. So the shark was from the Bronx, had leather on, had, this, had a fin, had teeth. You're like, okay, we get it. He's a shark.
Shark.
But it was still fun.
Like the shark in the jet. Yeah, he was going like this.
Yeah. All of it.
Oh my gosh. Well, Marianne.
That was a great first experience, and because it was my first one in San Francisco.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah, my first play in San Francisco.
Yeah. Actually, I think you were actually working. I think when I met you, you were working as a temp. Were you working as a temp, or you were working like
at the temp agency as a temp?
Yeah, you were. And I don't want to go off on too many tangents. Did you write a play about temps?
Yeah, the thugs.
The thugs. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ah,
And I ended up their receptionist, so I wrote the receptionist from
that's
that.
right.
So San Francisco was very good to me.
So be careful if you have a relationship with Adam, because it's very likely that your experience with him is going to turn into a play.
Definitely.
Or if you're lucky. Marianne, what about you? What about you, Marianne? What was your
I was
like?
thinking about that. My immediate thought wasn't to go that far back, but now I have to.
Yeah.
So I remember something. It wasn't You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown, but it was inspired by.
Yeah.
In second grade, and telling all my classmates what they had to do to tell this story. And then somebody, and I think it was my mom.
Marianne, you were directing it?
I was directing it.
Yeah, second
And
grade.
I think my mom said to me, "You should play Lucy." And I thought, oh, okay. And I thought that sounded good too, if I could tell everybody what to do and play Lucy. And then I realized that in a lot of my pretend situations, I was really eager to tell people how the story could best be brought to life. But it was really, I think it was really I was taking dance and music classes. And in high school, I went to an all-girls Catholic high school. The teacher, Cab Cavey, decided to do Stage Door, which has so many women in it, and they needed a Russian pianist, which was something I could do at that time. I can't anymore, but I could at that time. And, I practiced so that the music sounded fine, but it was the role and the dialect and being with all these people and creating, and he was really rigorous.
Mm.
So I felt like I couldn't, I could get by in all my other classes with part of me. I couldn't get by in a play with part of me.
Right.
And that was really engaging to me. And also in high school, they took us to see a play at ACT. And my first thought there was, people do this for money? And that was a whole other mind thing. And then I think it was just thing after thing after thing. And I think, Adam, unlike you, I have done a lot of other things. And I was thinking about, I have been asking friends about Adam Bock, and I thought, why don't I know Adam? He's such a central part of it. And you said 1996. And I said, my daughter was 6 years old. Got it. This is where I was. This is the job I had. And it was just a part where I was just not in the theater community. And so, it's kind of exciting to now really be able to just be in it.
Do it.
Just do it. And it just hasn't been hard to keep alive for me, Patrick. It's not been a challenge because I've always done something. Really early on, Malcolm, my husband, and I, who's also a theater artist, we said, you know what, every theater is a community theater. So it's the people that are there at the time working on it that actually make up that theater. And so we've just worked wherever there was work and just kept going.
Is that part of, when you say like every theater is a community theater, is it that relationship to theater that has kept it as a central part of your life, as opposed to like other things that it could have pulled you in other directions? Was it that interest or attraction to the community in theater that like why did, like, of all the places you could have gravitated, other professions, other ideas,
I think it was storytelling to the people who were around you.
Yeah.
And with the people who were around you, that if I was going to take even 20 hours a week to be away from my family while I was working a job and raising a kid, did it really make sense for me to drive add a commute to that? Or could I just do a play at the local community theater and get to know those people and talk about my ideas with them and act or direct. So it was, I think it was really valuable anyway. It was fun.
I think that is the, because as you, right before you said it, I wrote, it's the relationship of the audience to the show. That's the thing that we have that's different from other, and in the minute, it's that thing of someone laughing and someone else laughing.
Mm-hmm.
And then that impacting the actors as well, you know.
Yeah.
So that is what we do that's different. I think similar to probably music in that way, you know, the live performing arts versus the recorded ones or the ones that are mediated by the TV, or even when those are live, they don't see their audience, you know.
Yeah, no, you get that response. And it's funny, the Bay Area is, I've been doing a lot of driving, so it's on my mind, but it can feel very spread out. But if you're sitting in a theater, if you go early and you hear people talking, a lot of what you hear is, oh, did you see the show at,
Yeah.
you know, and no, but did you see this? And people who go to the theater are going to all the theaters, and they don't know the hierarchy of theaters.
Right.
They just go to the theater.
Mm-hmm.
If a show interests them, they go.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, it's I don't know, it's something that I really, really value about it. And it's been COVID and having Zoom, knowing people only through Zoom has been, I think it's been hard on all of us, just because it's not that I'm an extrovert, because I'm not, but that way of working together and playing together is unique.
I actually think theater is a really good place for introverts.
Tell me more about that.
Well, I think there are the obvious extroverts like you, Patrick.
I feel like I discovered during COVID, I really could be fine without being around people. Like what I found is what I confronted with the fact, and this is a weird thing to be saying on a Zoom thing, but I'm just going to say it, like I am, and people who have seen me before I make a speech, before I have to go to a thing, I am so uncomfortable. I feel like I have to steel myself to make a presentation, to go to a party, to go to a gathering. Like it is not something I get into it and then I'm just doing it. You know, I'm just kind of in the stream. But when we have a cast party, I choose to sit in the back of the room and talk to one person.
You might be an introvert.
Yeah, and I realize, and then Adam also, what I realized also, and this is something else I'm just going to say, Adam and I are both recovering alcoholics, and Adam knows that I'm okay saying that because it's a big part of our identity. And I have to say, I was able to be an extrovert, because by drinking. And
Right.
That's what drinking did for me. It allowed me to be comfortable around people. But the truth of the matter is, I'm actually really uncomfortable. And I can get into a rehearsal process, and it's much better for me once I kind of get to know folks. I can kind of have a thing kind of happening. But the truth is, I'm really uncomfortable in groups. I'm really uncomfortable speaking in front of folks. But I do it because it's my job. I have to.
I wonder whether a lot of people in the theater are like that, and it's great because it's so structured. Because I certainly am. I'm very shy, and I'm not in my role as a playwright because I know what my role is. I know what I'm supposed to do. I know that I'm supposed to speak friendly and I'm supposed to be open, and so I know how to behave. But it's a role that I've learned over the years, and it's a comfortable role for me. I'm happy to do it and I like it, but I don't know. I am the same way. I'm I've been here alone for a long time.
And I'm okay with it.
I am okay with it.
I started playing golf, and I really just prefer. And I go early in the morning, so I can only play by myself.
Well, that's definitely a very lonely game.
Yeah. I mean, it's just it's just you get to walk around. You're in the woods, the deer and the turkeys, and
right, great, right?
Oh. Anyway, but I've realized wow, I felt like I've felt my nervous system just go.
Did you know this, or did it change your perception? Like, did you say, oh my goodness, COVID has made me see that I am much more introverted than I thought I was?
Yes, well, and then someone forwarded me an article about like introverted extroverts or extroverted introverts or something like that. I'm like, that's because people often call me an extrovert, and I guess I was like, I guess I'm an extrovert, but I really was like at a party. I want to wash the dishes. I
I
go to
do
the kitchen.
wash the dishes.
Yeah, I want to go there because I'm turning my back to everybody, and I can just like do it.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of a rest, for me, when you said that, you steel yourself. It's like the energy to push through. It's same as writing plays, actually. It's like I've written it and then I'm exhausted, and then I need a rest. I need a real rest. I know there are a lot of people just go and go and go and go. I don't.
Yeah.
Wow.
I feel like in a theater situation, there's time, you know it's going to be a process. So everybody can start sort of where they are, and the introverts come out and the extroverts kind of settle down, and
Yeah.
and then you're comfortable. Then it's a small group, even if it's a large cast, because you've all been together working on a task, and that's so helpful.
Yeah.
So helpful.
Adam, I want to pivot back to something you just talked about, like writing a play, and I'm really kind of curious to hear a little bit about your process. And I want to also kind of bring us back to A Small Fire. And this is a play that I've known about for a while. I've read it a few times over the years, and it's something that I actually went back to because I remembered that the protagonist, or this lead character, it has an issue where she has I guess it's a disease, or that where she starts to lose her senses, like one at a time. And at the time, in the early days of COVID, we were conscious of people not being able to taste and then also losing their sense of smell and taste, and how disorienting and how unsettling it was for folks. And that was like, oh, wait a minute, I've read a play where this kind of starts to happen to somebody. And when I read it again, I was also just sort of conscious of the people that were struggling with their lack of, how we can lose connection with people that we're even married to or related to, and listening to folks talk about how the isolation, or even the fact that people are conversing with masks, that we're starting to like feeling like folks were losing what people were really upset about were like the lack of human connection that they were having. And so that's what got me thinking about doing this play now. And I guess what I'm curious about, like, I'm really curious about like what inspired you to write this play. I don't know if there's, a lot of times when we think back on something we've done, we look back on something that we've done years before, like, does it mean something different to us now? That's something I'm kind of curious about. If you've, like, when you revisit a play, or if you've seen a production of it later, like, does it make you, like, if you learned something about it that you didn't think about at the time you wrote it? But I think more broadly, I'm kind of curious, like, what inspired you to even, to force, as you start talking about how you have to kind of steel yourself to write a play. What made you go like, okay, I have to like make myself write this play?
Yeah. This one came from two things. So I often, I work pretty similarly every time I write. I look for a shape to write and a subject. And usually the shape and I don't always know why they go together, but the shape has to be interesting in a new way. So for example, Five Flights was in the shape of a ballet. It was a Russian ballet from the 18th century. It always starts with something, tells the story, and then there's a moment of madness, and then there's a moment thing and something else, and then there's a little dance at the end. So I wrote that order, and then I wrote the story inside it. This one, I was reading a book about senses, and I thought, what would happen if you lost your senses one at a time? It was just very simply that. What would that be? Which one would you lose? What would feel unimportant to important? Like, where would it go? So that was the shape. I knew it was going to be in 5 pieces as the 5 senses. So I knew that each one would have to tumble and get more important and more, as theater, to build. And the other part was that my dad had a stroke. And so he'd had a stroke a couple of years before I wrote it, maybe. And maybe 3 years or something, enough so that I had a little distance. And he had been a guy who, even though he was in his 70s, was still riding his bicycle every day, had just retired finally. My mom made him retire. And then he had a stroke. And suddenly he was an athlete who couldn't move. And I thought to myself, what do you do if your body betrays you? Like, what happens to you when your body betrays you? And then what happens to the people around you who have to deal with someone whose body has betrayed them? And what happens to the balance of power? I saw the balance of power in my family was my father had had a lot of certain kind of power. My mother had to take it over, and watch that happen, and watch people need someone that they didn't used to need. So it's about that, and it's about I was the daughter. Like, I'd had a very fraught relationship with my father, and so then what do you do when someone has a stroke? You have to love them, and you're like, fuck, I'm mad. I don't want to love him. So
Yeah.
I just wanted to be honest about all of that, and I
Yeah.
flipped the gender so my parents wouldn't know.
Have you ever talked? Did you ever talk to them about that when the show? No.
No, they even saw it. I think they might have seen it. They didn't know. They didn't know. It's an interesting show though, because some people would come out white-faced.
I believe it. I believe it. I
think.
I really love the opposites that are happening in that show, because John is coming
Yeah.
to his senses.
Yeah.
And it's just gorgeous. It's really, I told you I loved it. I really, really meant it. It's it's gorgeous. And I also, if you don't mind, can I ask a question, Patrick?
Go for it.
Okay.
Take the reins.
I'm also curious because I wouldn't technically call it magical realism, but there's something operating that is more than what is happening on the stage. And I'm wondering about your relationship with that thing that nobody will be able to hear, but you can see my gesture.
No, I get it. That's, to be truthful, when we did the play at first, I thought people were going to laugh because but they don't. Because what's wonderful about theater people is they believe what you tell them. So, my friend Trip Cullman, who directs my shows a lot, says that he likes that he says that I turn, I don't know how he puts it, but he sort of says that I turn metaphor into reality, or like that there's a solidifying of metaphor, or physicalization of metaphor.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what this is. This is it. I hope it is that thing that you're talking about, because I love the idea that I do try to, you want something else to be in the air that you don't know, and that could be your fear, or it could be your hope, or it could be anything. But because I think all of us, when we're sitting as a group and we're watching something happen to someone, probably we're all holding our breath thinking, oh, I hope that's not me sometimes, or we're gasping that they managed to get away, or laughing because how audacious they are. I wish I were that audacious, so there's always that thing. I think the audience's hope, or audience's something,
Right,
with the play, because the play is just there to make us have this experience together, right?
mm-hmm.
Or to be brave enough to have. I think what I always hope is try to write tough stuff. That's stuff that's hard to automatically take. And then because you're with an audience, you say, okay, I'll do it.
Mhm.
So going back to Swimming in the Shallows, I remember there's this wonderful, one of my favorite moments in the play is the boy says to his friends, he says, I'm in love with a shark. And no one says, they say, which shark? They don't go, a shark? They go, which one? And you're like, and the audience goes, okay,
Yes.
we'll go with them. We're not going to abandon them. They're finding out what shark. So yeah, which shark? The shark at the aquarium. Oh, that shark. You know, and the audience is like, we know that shark too. I don't know whether you should be in love with him or not.
Yeah. Wow. I didn't even think about that, Adam.
They don't stop and go, you're crazy, you're in love with a fish.
Right.
How are you gonna have sex or anything like that? Nothing of that. They're just like, oh, what are you gonna do about it? The audience is wonderful that way. And so I think the same thing happens in this play. And they go along and say, okay, that might be me. That might be me. That still might be me. That might be me. Oh my gosh, what am I gonna do?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or I'm the husband. What am I gonna do? How am I gonna still love her? Or I'm the daughter. How am I gonna get away? Or I'm the friend. How am I gonna support her? You know?
Well, because I think part of it is because the relationship of an older couple is so true. The relationship that the things around it you just accept because it feels so true.
Yeah.
And you know, I was thinking, okay, 2009, that was, which I believe is the draft I have.
Mm-hmm.
And you're a young man. I mean, not, you know, baby, but I'm going to say I was young in 2009.
I was not. I was determinedly middle-aged.
And yet,
No,
and
but
yet
that's
it's
my
very
job, right?
perceptive. I'm trying to throw you a compliment here.
That's very nice of you.
Extremely
What sign are
perceptive.
you?
Aries, Leo rising.
We get along great. I'm a
Okay.
Scorpio. Super easy. You won't put up with any of my bullshit, which is very unfortunate, but because you guys are very forthright, which I love. I love Aries.
Scorpio. We reckoned well together. So.
Your husband's a Scorpio?
No, my mom was.
Yeah, I know, isn't it? It's a good match actually, because they're equal strength. It's good.
Yeah. So.
What else, Patty?
I mean, what I was going to just say was, I was just thinking about your other plays and things that I love about this one. I'm thinking a lot about you steeling yourself to write, and when you talk about the shape, how you create a shape for your plays. There's something else that you do that I love. What I love as a theater producer, what I love about reading your plays, and as someone who's going to be able to offer your plays to a designer and to directors, is the way that the kind of stage directions that you write in there that are just invitations for folks to create something like a passage of time, you know, happens. Like, what does that look like? How do we tell a passage of time? A lot of people don't give something for a transition. Like, what is it? They just like, you go to scene, but you actually create stage directions for transitions that I think are just such great invitations for designers to participate. And the things that, like the sort of like the cathartic dance that somebody does, or somebody kind of having a freak out dance, that's like, okay, what does that look like? And I remember in Typographer's Dream, that thing that happened with Jamie, the actress, I can't think of her name right now.
Right, Jamie Jones.
And I was like, what the fuck just happened? And she just does this thing that like, it was an amazing play, it was an amazing production, but I felt like I never forgot her. And that play just landed in my gut based on that. And the way that there's a similar invitation to I can't think of like the mother wife character, or the lead character in this, what her name is, but she's given something to do like that to do at this wedding. The lovemaking scene at the end of the play is like, I mean, we did the reading of this play and they were reading it and we were all just crying. Like listening to them read this play, we're all just crying. And we finished the play and I really couldn't speak because I was just, it was so like intimate and sexy, beautiful. It was so, I thought like, what an incredible opportunity to tell a story, something you talk about, like to tell a story of like humanity that we don't get ourselves a chance to do in theater. And to kind of have that kind of, it felt like such a bold, like, okay, this is a gesture of humanity that we all know what it is. I mean, part of us all kind of understand what it is, but we don't get it. We see beautiful young nubile vixens and vixens, you know, getting naked and kissing or whatever they do, but we don't get a chance to see people that are like our ages and whatever having these intimate moments. People are like, I don't know, but there's something about that was so.
Mhm.
It was so wonderful and refreshing and important. So I'm not quite sure where I was going with that, except for to say that I love the things that you think. Something that you talked about doing is the kind of characters you like to center in your plays. And I remember you talking about this during Fairy's Tale, and actually during Shaker Chair, and wanting to center like some like folks who don't normally get to play Hamlet. They don't get to be the lead of the show.
Right.
And I wanted to hear you say a few words about that, if that was something that was, if you don't mind.
No, it's important. You know, it was funny because when I started writing the play, I knew I wanted her to be strong, and I knew I wanted her to get weak. So she had to be strong, and so I thought, oh, I'll make her the head of a company. And I thought, should she be the head of a art gallery, or should she be? And I was all these, sexist. And I was like, she should be the head of a construction company, right? And then what turned out was when we did the play in New York, all of these construction companies have women as the heads of them. And they came up to me and they're like, how did you know? How did you do this? And I didn't know. So I was lucky. But it's interesting because I think it's a tough character. The thing I would tell Marianne at the beginning is, how do we let a woman of that age not be accommodating to the people around her?
Right.
And that's a radical thing to do, I think. Instead, because I know women are not, but the representation of women are.
Yeah.
But the reality of women are not. Some are, just as some men are.
Sure.
But a lot of women aren't. And those are the ones that I would love to see on stage and get more normalized. That ability, because it's just normal.
It is, and going back to what I felt was the truth of the relationship. Have you ever read? It's a compilation of Joseph Campbell's works, but it's in his voice, and he talks about how at the beginning of the relationship of his long marriage, he drove, and then he went through the stage of listening to his wife criticize the driving, and at the later part of their marriage, she drove.
Right.
And I think it's not an uncommon progression in long relationships.
No,
I have a feeling that that Emily has always felt pretty much in her power,
I think so.
which is why the loss is so
Yeah.
challenging, right?
Yeah.
Because it's so foreign, but that it just feels so real to me.
I'm glad.
Yeah, really.
I'm glad about that, because that is what's important to me. Because I think of every play I write as political in that way. I often tell students one of my favorite things was something that Thornton Wilder said, which was that Shakespeare is the best playwright because in his work you can't hear the axe grinding.
Mm.
You don't know what he thinks about Romeo and Juliet. You don't know, was it worth the one day of love? Might be. You know, you don't know whether Hamlet did the right thing or the wrong thing. And I love that. And so when I'm writing political, I think of myself as writing political plays always, you know, but I don't want them to hear the acts. I want them to see someone they haven't seen, and that should be enough.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You know, and see that, oh, why is there no room for that?
Mhm.
Even in swimming, there was the gay wedding before we were allowed to have weddings.
I know.
You know, but I didn't want to make a point of it, so it was about them smoking.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, she's cheating on me. She's smoking.
so, but I mean, that's the politics is
Yeah.
underneath, you know, instead of on top. And so with her, I think it's that. It's also, I mean, I love John, the husband, because he's gentle and he's caring and loving. And that's something I think that we miss, that guys don't get. That's the problem of sexism. Is that guys don't get to be like that as well as women don't. You know what I mean? So it's like
Mhm.
both sides really
Or
lose.
denied.
Yeah, are denied this big part of themselves that I think is there always.
Mhm.
You
Well,
know?
it's funny how much the daughter resents that in him.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's lovely.
So
Good
go ahead.
match. You made a good match.
Yeah, I know. I know I did. I knew right away who I was going to call. I was like, oh my gosh, Marianne, this is the play. This is the fit right here.
My lucky day. I was
Yes, I know. I was just, as soon as she reads it, it's done. You know, I knew it's going to be a good fit. I knew it was going to be a good fit. So we do have a handful of folks that are like watching this live, and so I want to give them, if any of them have an opportunity to, I would like to ask a question. I want to put that out there for y'all to do. Because we only have like 10 minutes left. Wah! But I'm kind of curious. I wanted to. Okay, I have a couple of things I would like to ask, and I guess I'm curious. You know, Adam, you said you don't write political plays. Do you wait for plays, the idea of a play to come to you, or do you like, I want to write something, I want to go, there are places you go to look for inspiration if you're like wanting to write something? No,
They come.
they just come.
Nothing's come all this year.
Yeah.
Well, I did write a play. I wrote a play, whether it gets done or not, because it was a commission for a very fancy person.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not sure he hasn't even read it yet. So,
Yeah.
No, they come, and I actually do think I write political plays.
Yes.
I wanted.
I know. I didn't say. I didn't mean to say that you don't write political plays. You don't go out seeking to write a political play.
No.
But do you go and think about, look at the news and say like, damn it all to hell, we need to write a play about like.
Well, I did that for the Thugs because that was about us torturing people. I mean, the receptionist, and the Thugs was about the Iraq War. So I was like, why are we pretending the thugs are out there? They're in here, you know. But it's not. I'm not like I can't do something like Kushner would do, which would make sense to other people or try to convince them. I'm not interested in that. No, I think it's more what is what am I often look at my own community and say, what is my community unable to do right now? So I know that there's going to be something coming up for me. I'm going to need to write about white gay men because hard for my community is that we've been lumped in with white men. And it's implying that I haven't gone through trauma and that I've been working on the side of the patriarchy. And I just get pissed at that. So I know I'm going to have to write something that challenges that, or at least has a voice that says something about that. I don't know the answer to it. So I have to do a lot of reading and a lot of thinking and stuff, but I know that something like that's going to come out at some point. Probably some more environmental stuff will come up at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Because it just is stuff. it's just basically I look and I try to say, what isn't being said, and is there a way that I could do my part by saying it? I've never been afraid to talk out loud. You know, my mom was very popular in my town, but often would just say so much. I mean, I remember one time she went up to someone and said that they'd painted their house the wrong color. And I thought that was not appropriate. But other times when she said that people shouldn't smoke, I was like, that's okay. You know, but she had a lot to say. So we were always like, when we were little kids, we were always protesting. We were always out protesting with my mom and my aunt, because my aunt was an animal rights activist and my mom was an environmentalist. And so I've always been yelling. And I think this hopefully is a more pleasant way of doing it.
Well, and something that folks may not know is that Adam is also a Canadian by birth. So he's a protesting, loud Canadian.
Again, it's a little bit rude to be loud in Canada. So
you'd think like, wow, this is not going to go over well, you know.
Although they're very noisy in Canada. They have a lot of opinions and they say a lot. So because I come by it honestly.
I had someone ask in the chat about why they wanted to hear. Frank wants to know like how I saw a link between Marianne and Adam, and you know, I guess I have to say, you know, one of the things that occurred to me when one of the people I was thinking about when I was reading this play, as I was sort of picturing Mary. When I was reading the play, I was seeing Marianne's face. Sometimes, you know, when you read a play, you put people's faces in the different characters. And I had put Marianne's face in the most recent time I'd read it. I had been talking with Marianne about something else before that. And I had put Marianne in this character. And not because I think Marianne is like this, you know, loud or whatever, like angry or whatever, like, you know, no bullshit construction boss, but that you had the sensitivity, understanding to like, just in our conversations to know what it meant to play this part. And I think it felt for me really important that the person who was going to be directing this play to me would really be able to help an actor bring integrity to this particular, and the things you're talking about earlier, Adam, but like how this person doesn't have to be accommodating, to give them the confidence of like, this is the trust that this character is exactly what they should be. Because it's not often, you know, people often don't want to portray characters that are like unloved by their daughter, rude to their husband, you know, are going to be what they're going to, you know, whatever they are, you know, they're like, and I think a lot of people, you know, that's just, that's what came to my mind.
Good. True.
Yeah, if you don't have that, that's her journey, right? If you don't have that at the beginning, then
it's hard because you have to. There's a funny book I read every now and then, which is for writing movies, which is called Save the Cat. And at the beginning of a anti-hero, you also have to have a moment where they save the cat, so the audience knows that they're not irredeemable. So they often save a cat, or they pat a child, or they, you know, as they shoot other people, they don't shoot the cat, you know?
Yeah.
So it's just a way to let the audience know that that we're not looking at an unrepentant villain.
Right.
But rather we're looking at a full person who's using their strengths more than we're used to, you know?
Yeah. I'd actually heard of that because my daughter is continuing in the storytelling tradition as a writer.
Oh yeah.
And she mentions that book.
Yeah. It's really good. It's interesting.
Yeah.
Just in the moments that we have left, I'm kind of curious, like, Adam, I know you can't tell us who this fancy person is you're writing a play for, I'm sure, but I am kind of curious if there are other things that y'all can share about, like what's coming up for you or what you're working on now that you, other than Marianne this, I know you're working on some other stuff. And Adam, if there's anything you'd like to share about what you're working on or what you're excited about.
I'm drawing.
Drawing?
Yeah, because I don't know what's going to happen with theater.
Yeah.
So I had to do something, so I started drawing, which I've done ever since I was a little kid. So it's actually, and the thing that's great about it, the drawings don't have to have meaning. which I love.
Yeah. What a
There's no-
relief.
There's no meaning at all. In fact, they're sort of empty of meaning because they're meditative, and I love it. It's just so, it's like I draw lines, and they're beautiful. I'm really kind of, and it's interesting because people are like, that's beautiful. And I'm like, oh, I just drew it. And it doesn't have to be, I don't remotely self-edit during it.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas all theater is all, when I'm writing a play, all I'm doing is looking for meaning.
Wow.
Where, how much to put, how little to put, how to trick you into finding it out, how to lead you to meaning, how to, just endless. And if it doesn't have meaning, I cut it. And then even if it's beautiful,
Wow.
and so if it's not pushing the thing, then it's not in there. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
it's a relief. What about you, Marianne?
I don't know, but I'm thinking you could make a mixed media thing with all your cut beautiful material. That'd be kind of cool. I have no secret
You
talent.
are a director.
But I'm working on Pericles right now with San Francisco Shakespeare Festival, and it's the first theater I've done since March of 2019. We're rehearsing in masks. I'm terrified about, even though we're outdoors, I'm terrified about when the masks come off. But I think they will. And we talked about the process earlier. I am with people making something and talking about the problem with Pericles. So it's pretty great. It's really great. And the first 3 episodes were virtual with this united virtual space, I think they call it, and it's layering different characters into the scene that are in different locations, all using a green screen. And it was super challenging. And I feel like if I get an offer from Marvel, I'm ready. I can do green screen. So that's my superhero career that I'm sure is hurling towards me as we speak.
What I thought of Patty, as she said, it was that they're all in masks. Like, why aren't you doing mask work?
Yeah, honestly.
Like it was, I kept, when I started this all, I thought, oh, I wrote down, it's a return to our youth. We got nothing, we can't use anything. We're outside. You know what I mean? Like maybe it's time to do a masked play.
Yeah.
Media or some sort of like
But
that.
I think that, like, because with the green, but I think the
mouth
mouth part needs to be.
But maybe it'll be covered in a different way, or maybe you can still get the voice out, but maybe maybe it's time for mask.
It might be. It might be. It would be really fun.
The thing I'm wondering is, what happened to me during Zoom was it felt like theaters got scared rather than thought, okay, so this is our new reality. What do we do? What do we do? That's a bigger question. There's only a minute left.
Yeah, we're not going to answer that one. But I'm going to say something that y'all both share about what you're doing now that was on my mind is I don't actually go to the theater for inspiration myself. I actually go to art galleries. That's what I do. I go to art galleries. And one of the things I was able to do in the halcyon days when we all felt like we're free, we're vaccinated, we can go and do things, is I went to a bunch of art galleries. I was in New York and I went to a bunch of art galleries. I went to the De Young here and MoMA and all those things. And like when I have a day off, that's what I like to do, is go look at visual art. Like I do like going to theater, but I go to art galleries to get in to be inspired or to be recharged, I will say. But one thing we did earlier this year, again in the Halcyon days, we did do a private reading with audiences, masked actors, vaccinated, of Lauren Gunderson's play, The Book of Will. And that play just every joke is about Pericles, about and it was actually, I got the first email about the fact that y'all were that this show was happening. I didn't know you were in it at the time. When we were in rehearsal, and I was like, oh my gosh, because Lauren Gunderson just has so much fun teasing about how bad a play Pericles is, whatever, or how problematic a play Pericles is. So I thought that was kind of funny.
Yeah, yeah.
Before we go, tell Rich Black that he did a great job with your logo. This one,
Yes.
talking about theater. I love it with the tear.
Yeah.
It's so good. He's so
Yeah.
good at these
He's
things.
so good. I'll make sure we get a little clip of this that we send on to him. He's just,
It's amazing.
yeah.
I was like, I knew that was him, and I was
Yeah.
like, it's great. I
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah, he's so good.
Sorry, I
so good.
interrupted your Pericles.
No. That's it. So folks who are looking at this now or later on, when we cut a clip of this and put it up on YouTube, thank you for checking it out. Thank you, Marianne. Thank you, Adam, for making time to do this. It was so great to see both. Adam, I'm if my daughter goes to school in New York, I'm going to get the chance to see more of you.
I know, it's gonna be great. Letting me know.
So fun. Absolutely. She has an uncle Adam in New York. Adam's everybody's uncle. A lot of uncles. And Marianne, eventually we're going to be producing the show, and I'm going to get a chance to work with you in person, and we'll get Adam out here to visit his
Oh,
old
pretty
friend.
exciting. That would
Or
be
I can
wonderful.
Zoom.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, we can.
I know, that's what's amazing. Is like now smaller theaters, they don't have to fly me. I can just come.
Yeah.
This thing.
And we'll be live streaming some performances of this too. So there will be, we're going to have live streaming it's like, that's here with us now. That's not going to go away. We're having live, because some folks are just not going to be comfortable, or we've also met folks that live in other parts of the country in this time who want to stay in touch.
It is
So
interesting.
live streaming is with us now.
It's interesting. That may be the one thing, good thing that came out of it.
Yeah. We were always making fun of, like, we're not going virtual, we're only real. Like, nah, we're doing both. Nah, okay, fine. We're doing both. It's so good to see your faces. I love you, Adam.
Likewise.
Thank you, Marianne.
Thank you.
Nice to
Adam,
meet you,
so nice
Marianne.
to meet you. So nice to meet you. And Patrick, as always, thank you.
Yes, absolutely. All right, folks. Thank you. Good night.
Bye.
Bye.
Do we hang up?
No, I don't think so. I think we can stay on. I think we'll edit this part out.
Okay.
This will get cut off, and
Glass-
hi.
Go get a water.
Yeah, go get some water. Hi, Heather.
Oh, boy. I didn't throw, I mean, I am having a wonderful time with Pericles. That did come across, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I felt bad. Then I felt like kind of a jerk for like saying that. And then I was like,
But it's funny. It's funny, and it's kind of true.
I mean, everybody kind of knows that Pericles is like one of those ones. Like, did Shakespeare really write Pericles? But who knows?
Well, the other thing is maybe your young editor here would be able to not put that part in. 11 people that saw it will be like, you can't believe what Patrick said. But
Scandal.
If that's the most scandalous thing that is said about me this year, then I will call that a win.
Yes, I would agree.
Yeah.
Me too.
How'd it go? How'd it go, Heather?